create the world we live in and tell the story of our way of life. They have the power to move mountains, build roads and bridges, erect and destroy skyscrapers. They feed us, care for us, make our lives more enjoyable, and communicate our thoughts to our loved ones. Our hands are the tools that reach out and connect us with the rest of the world. They aren't accident-proof, they aren't covered by any warranty, and without them, much of our life's activities would disappear. Because our hands play such an important role in our lives, do so many different tasks, we need to protect them at all times. But according to the National Safety Council, 1 out of every 4 accidents on the job involve hands, fingers, wrists, or arms. This study, completed by the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics on work-related hand injuries and upper extremity amputations, showed the largest percentage of injuries occurred to people who were operating, maintaining, or repairing machinery or equipment. But injuries also occurred in chemicals and materials handling, shipping and receiving, assembly, and office tasks, anywhere our hands are used on the job. While on the job, our hands are inches away from smashing steel, grinding wheels, saw blades, extreme temperatures, molten metal, sharp knives, pinch points, strong acids, alkalides, and toxic chemicals, and repetitive motion stress. These computer reports from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's accident investigation files represent some of the ways that people incur hand, finger, and arm injuries. And in this program, we'll show you some of the work environments where these accidents occur, how they happen, but more importantly, what safety practices you need to observe in avoiding similar hand, finger, and arm injuries. Our work environment determines to a large degree the hazards we encounter. For instance, your job could contain environmental hazards, such as extreme heat or cold, electrical energy, rough materials, or your job might have ergonomic hazards, such as repetitive motion. Many jobs deal with chemicals and irritating substances or biological agents. Other jobs contain mechanical hazards, such as sharp edges, points, crushing actions, rotating shafts, in-running nips, and pinch points. We can protect ourselves from all these hazards by following the company's safe work procedures, understanding when hand protection is required, and choosing and wearing the correct personal protective equipment. Because in almost all incidents, hand and finger accidents occur as a result of our personal behavior or our lack of understanding about safety. November 7th, 1992. John Growler is assisting in bending heavy metal plates to a predetermined arc. Although instructed to keep the floor clear of obstacles around the machine, he waited until it was in operation before doing so. Tripping over his own tools caused him to fall into the rollers. The machine operator was completing paperwork and wasn't aware of the accident until it was too late. Housekeeping is not just about being neat. It's about preventing accidents. John Growler never connected hand injuries and housekeeping. Now he does. For some hazards, there are no gloves that will protect you, only your belief in your personal safety. On October 10th, 1991, Earl Osterman, changing the cooling liquid on a drilling machine, scratches the back of his hand with a drill bit. Deciding to finish the job before getting first aid attention, he then allows coolant to flow into the wound. The coolant had been contaminated with bacteria, and by delaying going to the first aid station, he allowed his hand to become infected. When deciding which glove to use, the most important consideration is the work being done and what hazards are present. Earl Osterman didn't wear gloves or understand that the use of coolant was hazardous. You must understand the hazards you're faced with and choose hand protection accordingly. And if you're not sure, check the MSDS or ask your supervisor. Because when working with chemicals, you should be aware of their ability to deteriorate the glove material, flow through a seam or pinhole, or the chemical diffuses through the glove and can't be seen with the naked eye. Over time, this can cause serious toxic effects to skin, respiratory, or the central nervous system. Therefore, inspect your gloves for these conditions before using them each time. Other safety precautions to observe are: avoid contaminating the inside of the glove with dirty hands and keep the outside as clean as possible. Only use them for the job they were designed for. Don't reuse disposable gloves, and replace any gloves that are dried, cracked, or misshapen. Store reusable gloves in a clean, dry area. Extreme temperatures also present hazards to our hands. Monique Salvar, in June of 1992, failed to wear enough insulation under her protective glove. After several hours on the line, she lost control of her hand muscles and suffered a serious cut. Working several hours at a stretch may require you to layer the protection by using adequate insulation inside gloves and a chemical or oil-resistant outer glove. Some people require more protection than others. Under these conditions, be sure the outer glove is large enough to accommodate the insulating liner. Repetitive stress is another hazard that we need to be aware of. Repetitive stress develops over time and can be caused by allowing your wrist to work in awkward positions. Keeping your wrist in line with your arm and changing your hand motion may relieve much of the discomfort. To help prevent damage to the skin on your hands and fingers, another safety precaution is barrier cream, and there are several basic types. Among them are solvent-resistant and water-resistant creams. The chemicals you work with will determine your choice of protection, and these creams can be used under the correct glove for additional chemical protection. If you're unsure about which type to use, ask your supervisor or supplier. A hazard we can't see is electrical energy. On January 7, 1994, Robert Ferris, a maintenance repairman with 10 years on the job, was modifying a piece of equipment. Using a 1/4-inch drill with a damaged power cord he had hastily taped back together, he allowed the exposed wire to short out against his metal watch band. Receiving only minor burns, Mr. Ferris was lucky, considering the fact he should not have been wearing jewelry and he used an unsafe power tool. Other environments contain very different hazards. Frank Batavius, a machine operator on a piston ring cleaning machine, allowed the catch bin to overfill. On February 7, 1992, Clarence Hall attempted to clean the working surfaces beneath the rotating drill presses with his hands. Brushing the filings from beneath the press, Clarence's shirt became entangled in the rotating bit. Mr. Batavius resumed his task. His glove caught in the conveyor belt, and he received a severe finger injury. Clarence received severe face lacerations, and his shoulder was pulled from the socket. Failure to follow safe work practices, using hands instead of tools, and operating rotating equipment while wearing gloves and loose clothing cost them dearly. There are some jobs we perform that either do not require gloves, or gloves are not safe to use. In July 1993, Jose Montoya was feeding steel into a continuously running roll press. He'd removed the guard sometime earlier that day to allow him to correct a recurring problem. Reaching in to check the rollers while the machine was running, his hand caught on the moving steel and it was pulled through the pinch point created by the steel in the roller. Mr. Montoya's hand and entire arm were severed by the action. Never attempt adjusting a machine with your hands while it's running. If this is necessary, use an assist. Removing the guard and then attempting to adjust the machine while it was running cost Mr. Montoya his arm. Anytime you're around rotating shafts, discs, in-running nip points, and other actions, be especially careful, because the gloves, loose clothing, or jewelry can pull you and your hand into the moving parts. November 2nd, 1991. Christina Wando was clearing the trim near the slitter on the ends of the paper rolls. The company provides a wooden wedge for use in this operation to keep the hands and fingers safely away from the slitter. For unknown reasons, she decided to reach in with her hand to clear the paper. She now understands the reason for the assisting device.
Your company has provided a safe place to work by installing machine guards, enclosures, interlock switches, 2 hand operating controls, and electric eyes, all designed and put in place for your protection. Removing or disabling these safety devices and disregarding your training eventually leads to personal tragedy. On September 14, 1990, Charles Badsden was performing his regular daily task, cleaning the sausage blender. He had jammed the interlock switch on the bottom door so he could finish the job faster. Proceeding against company rules, he put his hand and the water hose into the blender while it was running. It only took a moment for the blender to completely amputate most of his right arm. Disabling the interlock and defying the company's policy is a serious safety violation. Charles's poor attitude about his safety forced him to learn this the hard way. Safety and concentration around machines must be your first priority. If you let your emotions control your actions, you're working with your feelings, not with what you know. August of 1992, Roy Anderson made this mistake. Had he been paying attention to his job, assisting in aligning the top of the tank to the bottom before welting, he could have prevented his injury. Stay mentally alert. Keep your fingers where they belong, out of harm's way, and on your hands.
Hey, Ron, you ready? I got a couple here I got to cut up. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, I got it.
On October 10, 1990, Fagan Badenball, along with his assistant, was changing the saw blade. They started the saw motor and the assistant adjusted the blade. Reaching behind his back for a piece of lumber, Mr. Badenball unconsciously stuck his hand into the moving saw blade, severing his fingers just above the second joint. Failure to pay attention to what he was doing cost Mr. Badenball the use of his hand. Your judgment is also affected by fatigue or drugs. Working with machines while still under the influence of alcohol or lack of sleep affect your concentration and muscle control. Jan Knowlton found this out on February 15, 1992, when he reported to work still under the effects of alcohol. He was standing on the forks of a lift truck while using a pallet as a platform to service a vent. As the lift was lowered, he tried to steady himself by holding onto the mast. As the carriage lowered to the floor, Mr. Watterson's hand was crushed between the moving parts of the mast. Neglecting to follow company policy, which clearly ruled out using pallets as personal platforms, cost Mr. Watterson any further use of his hand. Safe work practices and company policies, just like machine guards, have one purpose and one purpose alone: our personal protection. On March 27, 1991, Rick Fairmore, working in materials handling, climbed to the top of a storage shelf to retrieve a roll of material. Throwing the item down to the floor, he then decided to jump while holding on to the edge of the rack. When he jumped, his ring caught on the edge of the rack. His finger could not support his falling weight. Failure to observe the company's rule concerning the wearing of jewelry, along with not using a ladder, caused the loss of his finger. Hands and fingers are also damaged while using hand tools. Wally Burleson, working in the maintenance department, attempted to pry a ring from a universal joint with an awl. Charlene Thompson was cutting samples from a paper roll in a paper mill. Incorrect selection or use of hand tools is an unfortunate everyday occurrence and produces thousands of injuries. Wally rediscovered this when he let the joint slip and punctured his hand with the awl. Only use tools for the jobs they were intended. When using knives and other cutting tools, always keep the cutting action in a direction away from the body. Charlene used incorrect cutting procedures and sliced her hand and chest, learning the hard way to do it the right way. Unsafe work practices eventually allow accidents to happen, accidents that we can prevent. To protect your hands and fingers, keep these points in mind. Understand the hazards on your job and protect yourself. When gloves are required, choose the correct glove for the job at hand. Remember that rotating actions can grab gloves. Concentrate on what you're doing at all times. Make sure all guards are in place and functioning, and keep hands clear of pinch points, in-running nips, and crushing hazards. When servicing or adjusting machinery, observe your company's lockout-tagout procedure. Use hand tools designed for the job, and use them properly. Never wear rings, jewelry, or loose clothing around machinery. Do not use your hands to clean up trash. Use brushes or other objects around the hazard area. Know the signs of dermatitis. Keep hands and gloves clean. Maintain and store gloves properly, and discard gloves when they become defective. And know and always follow your company's job procedures and safety rules. Always following your company's procedures will protect you from losing fingers, hands, arms, even your life. When John Growler tripped over his tools, his life changed forever. Others in this program violated their company's procedures or neglected their personal safety, causing them to lose hands, fingers, or arms. When this happens, each victim loses not only part of his body, but parts of their lives as well. Look at your hands, and try to imagine the pain of smashing or cutting them off. Now remember that your hands and fingers provide the point of contact for everything we do, from the simplest to the most complex tasks. They express our emotions and provide contact with our loved ones. They help us make a living, and they allow us to enjoy it. Continue to enjoy the lifestyle you've worked for by resolving to always follow your company's safety rules and procedures. Your safety sense starts here. Don't let it stop here. Your fingers are counting on you.